Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Past the Noise, the podcast where we just have open forum discussions, discussing anything and everything. No topic is off limits, and we'll discuss it from a wide variety of perspectives, whether it be social, political, spiritual, whatever the case may be. So we're just excited tonight. Thank you for
Absolutely.
joining us. We're just really excited to be here. I am Michael Hightower, your co-host, joined as always by Apostle Walker, second co-host. So we thank you for joining us tonight, and we want to let you know off the top that this is an open forum. So we would love to hear what you think. We'd love to hear your comments, your questions, your feedback, whatever the case is. So I'll be throwing the link to call in the comment section from time to time. I know that some of you have had an issue not getting to the podcast, but you've had an issue calling in. That's because the link does not work if you're using the Facebook app on your phone. So we're working on that to make it easier so you just click and get in. But that's why it's asking you to click the link, to copy it, and then put it in the browser because there's no browser in the Facebook app, without trying to get too technical. But still, we want to hear from you. So yeah, hit us up and let us know what you think. So tonight we are discussing hip hop. It's a broad topic. We understand that, but we think that we've not narrowed down, but sort of structured, kind of what we're going to talk about in a way that's really going to be helpful, really going to be enlightening, and really be thorough about, the whole hip hop culture, the whole hip hop scene, the whole hip hop, whether it be music or just the way that people behave or the way they dress. We're going to discuss all of it. And of course, as always, want to hear from you. Apostle, did you have any opening thoughts before we get started?
I just wanted to say, man, I'm so excited about this particular topic because, hip hop was kind of was the soundtrack of my, coming of age. And, interestingly enough, I never thought, at 58 years old, I'm sure that there's, some people out there saying, what do you guys know about hip hop? Like, how can you talk about hip hop? But I'll be honest, man, I never thought we'd be here. I went looking at the genre from the beginning. I loved it the first time I heard it, but I never thought that it would last, that it would be here, would have this kind of influence. So, looking at the start and the evolution of hip hop, I'm really interested in, in hearing what some of the people have to say and really get into a discussion about, where it is, where it was, and like what's going on with hip hop now, which is so important in our time.
Yeah, to your point, I guess it would have been like late 70s-ish, late 70s, 80s. And it seemed like it was going to be a fad, like it just a thing, like pet rocks and everything else. It comes and then it goes.
Right.
But then you never really thought it was going to catch on the way it did because it wasn't mainstream. It really wasn't. It was almost like underground. Like you had to look. Totally, if you wanted to hear hip hop, you had to go and find it. It wasn't coming to you.
Right.
And in fact, one of the early complaints against MTV was they weren't playing enough hip hop and R&B as well. But that was one of the complaints. All you playing is pop and rock.
Right.
Where's this other? These other genres. So to your point, absolutely, it was sort of started as an underground sort of movement. But to that point, let's because I want to hear what Cornel West, he actually was talking about the origins of hip hop.
Okay.
Part of the problem we have here is a paradox. It goes back to Louis Armstrong, the jazz coming out of Storyville, coming out the red light district of St. Louis. It comes out of the blues, Jim Crow, gut bucket, Delta, Mississippi. American mainstream is obsessed with black creative genius, be it music, walk, style, but at the same time puts a low priority on the black social misery, which is the very context out of which that creativity flows. So hip-hop itself is just, hip-hop emerges out of the American Ice Age. It's Reaganism. It's obsession with material toys. It's being indifferent to the suffering of the most vulnerable among us. And it's precisely among that most vulnerable among us that this genius emerges out of the Bronx with African Bambaataa and Kool Herc and the whole South. You all know the history. But what happens? Mainstream America all of a sudden says, my God, this genius is undeniable. I've got to get in. I want to get in on it. But at the same time, you got political priorities in which the disgraceful school system still in place. Dilapidated housing still in place. Unavailable child care, health care still in place. Not enough jobs, a living wage still in place. So we're still wrestling with this paradox. And it's
Wow. So what do you think about that?
I mean, it's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that, you know, listen, the way that Cornel West, Dr. West put it out there was genius in and of itself. You know, I think that, you know, what he talked about was the real origins of hip hop, you know, that climbing out of the primordial ooze, if you will, that really did expose hidden things. You know, there was a whole hidden culture, whole hidden group of people who were genius in and of themselves that were absolutely hidden. And one of the things that hip hop did was it brought to life urban life. It brought to, it highlighted some hidden treasures, I think, in our culture that we had not really seen. You know, who knew about these people that were battle rapping in the park? You know, who knew about some of the skate nights that were had at certain events that people from all over different boroughs would go to? Who knew about certain neighborhoods that were there? So that was awesome. But I think that it also put a highlight socially on some areas that I think America had not looked at, had covered up, and that only the genius of music would have really brought out. So I mean, as you look at the very origins of hip hop, man, I think that Dr. West really kind of put it really succinctly about how this genius was really exposed, and now the mainstream wanted to get a hold of it.
So, you know, to that point about that part of it, it seems like it was taken, it was commercialized. Right. Whether we're talking about the music itself or even the fashion. I remember the Kangol hats and those things. Like, somebody got rich off of that stuff, but yet to his point, why are we still having projects? Like, if this thing is so great and it's so big and people are profiting, why are the people who are making the music as a result of, you know, really their everyday suffering, why are they still suffering? I mean, that is an excellent question. The answer is obvious, right? The answer is the people who are profiting are not the people in the neighborhoods. Primarily. And that they really don't care, even though it's exposed, even though they're being shown, oh, this is what their life is like. It's not really taking hold in a way that's really socially conscious. It's just sort of like, oh, that's a good beat, that, you know, it's funny, the rap is funny, whatever. I'm not sure that other neighborhoods, communities, if you will, took it to heart.
No, I mean, I think you talk about it like initially, or are you saying even now?
Well, initially.
Initially, no. You know what? I mean, again, because I think just as we kind of thought it was a fad, right? And also, I think that it was an unflinching look at something that America at the time was not willing to look at. You know, it was, you know, poverty and, you know, an underclass put to set the music. So in truth, America wanted, you know, it was cool to dance to, but it was not something that America was going to be faced with. It still had country music. It still had, you know, some happy R&B. So it had enough. Disco even was on the, you know, was leaving, but it still had enough happy stuff to really deal with until rap music was in America's face. At this point, this was still on the periphery. So I think it was, wow, you know what? I didn't know you guys were living that way. And even in urban settings, there were people, because they came out of the Bronx, there were people in other settings that were not aware of what was going on in New York, wasn't going on in the Bronx, wasn't going on in major cities, major urban hubs. So, I mean, it was initially a highlight. It was initially a spotlight. And I think it did a great job for what it was initially intended to do. I don't think any of the writers actually hoped in any way, or the performers hoped that there would be any social change.
With regard to, I mean, what's interesting is that I'm trying to think of one, but I can't think of another genre, another music form that is lifestyle based. Like, it seems like every other genre, you could just put on a cowboy hat, sing a cowboy song, and go home to, you know, wherever you really live. You can go home to New York City, right? You can live in Manhattan. Right. It seems like the hip hop stuff was the only thing that people are actually living it. Like, this is like our lives. This is not an act. It's not something we're putting on. It's the only one that seems to be like genuinely real. Does that make sense?
Sure, because it was, I mean, it encapsulated so many people. You know, the reality is that, you know, there's only so many cowboys that are out there. You know, I mean, you know, there's only so many truck drivers that are out there. You know, there's only so many people that, you know, can shoot a gun with one hand and drink with the other hand, right? I mean, so if you look at country music, you look at the blues, there's only so many people, you know, that can play the 6-string guitar. So all of those things really don't encapsulate a whole society of people, a whole group of people. They were very specific to a certain group of people that you could actually watch. This,
Right.
you know, hip hop talked about a huge swath of our society that was just simply hidden, that was living lives and you know, and having children and having a community and building literally communities within communities that we were not aware of. You know, there was not a community within a community when you look at some of the other genres that are there.
Right,
You know, disco. You know, everybody was dancing, but it wasn't really a community. You know, they tried to make it like it was a community, but the disco guys, but there wasn't really a community. You know, but when you look at this was a development. This was the exposure of communities that have been developed for now 50, 60, 100 years. And I think that was the beauty of the neighborhood battle and all of those things. People didn't know that was going on. You know, and then we didn't actually recognize that they could actually even be peaceful. There were battles, but they didn't end, at least at this point, they didn't end in gunfire. They ended with who's the best. You know, Bronx River is better than Queensbridge. It ended there, but it was not the violent thing that it's kind of evolved, or should I even say devolved into.
Yeah, I don't recall any like fights or violence. I mean, it was all verbal. It was all verbal, and then you went their separate ways. It wasn't people coming back later and doing stuff. But to your point about the evolution, let's check out another clip that talks about the evolution of how it evolved and how it sort of changed.
I'd love to hear all the men on that, but let me first say there's no question that commercial mainstream American hip hop not only responds to a legacy of violence against Black people, but it also exacerbates and glorifies it. Commercial mainstream American hip hop. This conversation has acted as if hip-hop is one thing or another, an entire monolith. And by ignoring the extraordinary commercial penetration of hip-hop, and I use that word advisedly, what we've allowed to happen is to render meaningful criticism of the commercial takeover of a Black cultural form designed not only to liberate, but to create critical consciousness, and turned it into the cultural arm of predatory capitalism in the last 30 years.
Man, I'm glad you had that clip, because I couldn't have said that. I could never, but I think she articulated it so perfectly.
Yeah. No, she did. I mean, she was emphasizing the commercial part of it, not, you know, underground, this, that, the third, but like Arista Records and Sony Records, like the real high level, multi-million-dollar corporate sort of commercializing of hip hop was bad for hip hop. I mean, it's bad for the people who were not only producing it, but the people that were producing it, you know, for. Like, it was the commercialization of it really turned it into making them disposable pieces within the industry. Like, we got this guy, and then he got shot, and we get the next guy. He got shot, and we get the next guy. So it made them disposable. I don't think they realized at the time that by doing it, by being commercialized, they were going to be made not extinct, but like I said, disposable and easily replaceable.
Sure. I mean, extinction, you know, is probably not there, you know, simply because there's, you know, when you look at what the industry is really doing and what the industry is invested in doing. You know, the industry shapes and creates images. That's exactly what the music industry is all about. And the music industry is also about trends. It's about recognizing trends. You know, hip hop has been shaping America now for about, you know, 25, 30 years. I mean, really seriously shaping. That's been a part of that shaping since the 80s, but it's been really shaping America for the last 20, 25 years. And the industry has had I think a real hand in moving and reshaping how the industry works. Violence sells. You know, let's face it. You know, hip hop is not the first, you know, it's not the genre that tells us that violence sells. America has always loved gangsterism, right? You know, before hip hop, there was Edward G. Robinson. You know, look, Mom, you know, top of the world, right? We realize we love the gangster, Bonnie and Clyde. You know, all John Dillinger, we've lifted them up. So America's had a love affair with gangsters. There has been a decided, and you can tell by the direction that the industry, this collision of rhyme and punishment, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can really begin to see that the industry is invested in the work being more violent. It's invested in going out and getting people that are actively engaged in street warfare now and then making them rappers. You know, it'd be crazy for us to really look back and think that every gang leader, every gang banger, this gets pulled off the street and somehow they have a hit record. There's no way that it's not an accident that this guy is a gangbanger who's on the street gangbanging, and now all of a sudden is just the biggest thing out of Atlanta, the biggest thing out of Houston. You know, where did New York find 12 of them who all were Bloods, who all were Crips, who were all with this? No, the industry is looking for that, is expanding it, helping it, and then disposing of these young men as the RICO charges come in. Just there's one after another that they can use. So when you begin to look at that, they've got an investment. The music industry is heavily invested even in building corporate prisons. A lot of people don't really realize that they're heavily invested in these private prisons. So as prisons are overrun, they're almost funneling these same young men from the street to the studio directly into the prison. And they're invested in selling violence that is only destructive in one area of our world. The people who are actually producing it.
Yeah,
it's not destroying Beverly Hills. It's not
No.
People in Malibu love rap music, right?
Sure.
But it's not killing anybody in Malibu. You know, I mean, they're blaring it right now in Greenwich Village. I mean, they're blaring it right now, you know, Fire Island up there in Massachusetts, wherever, you know, Martha's Vineyards. But I can tell you right now, you're not having the same effect. And that's the danger. That's really, as you begin to see the industry, you can begin to see that there's a sinister hand in hip hop that really, really is destroying a generation.
Well, I don't know if you have, but I haven't heard of any shootouts in any, you know, executive boardrooms lately. So they're not the ones getting shot. They're not in danger at all. You know, most of the time, we don't know who they are, but they're the ones making the real money behind the scenes. And to your point, they have a vested interest in to keep churning out the same stuff because it sells. If it didn't sell, they wouldn't do it. They would move into the next thing. They do it because there's an appetite for it. It sells. It's popular. And so they keep feeding the beast, if you will, but they're keeping themselves and their families safe. Like they're not in harm's way. They're not in harm's way at all. So that's kind of a crazy, you know, sort of dichotomy there. I'm going to throw the link for calling into the chat. So if you want to make a comment, question, feedback, whatever it is, I just put it in the chat. So there you go. So, you know, a lot of the criticism of hip hop that you hear is just the way that it treats and portrays women. Part of that is the industry, right? The stuff sells, you know, sex sells and sex appeal sells. But I think the other part of it is people willing to put themselves in positions. Nobody's dragging anybody, kicking and screaming and making them go into this field. They're choosing to do it. They're choosing their way. And so the men and the women are sort of have a hand in their own sort of misogyny. Like they're both not equally to blame, but there's enough blame to go around with regard to the way that women are portrayed and treated within the industry.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, I think we are talking really equal blame. You know, I mean, the reality is that being able to put a spotlight on what the industry is doing doesn't take away what those people who are willingly walking into the industry are openly and willingly doing to themselves and you know, and also to their women. You know, the references that are used, the B word that's actually used. The strange thing about it is the effect that it's had, that not only is that become regular language, that's what's accepted from men, but women have also now begun to accept it, have also taken it on, and now use it very casually to refer to each other. There is a self-hatred and a self-damage. You know, I mean, I guarantee you right now, if you looked at the rappers, and if you look at the industry, and if you look at the people who are part of this industry, and it was physical, and they were cutting themselves, we would say you need to get some help. that this is self-destructive behavior. When you look at what was happening with rap music, it is the same spiritual cutting. You know, we are spiritually cutting on women. We're spiritually cutting on ourselves. We're making ourselves targets of one another. And so insidiously, the industry is able to now sit back and just make money off of now what we are actually doing. The rappers are writing. It's not like there's some ghostwriters in back. These are guys who are proudly saying, yeah, you see that thing I just said about those women? I wrote that. You know, you see those things I just said about people in my own neighborhood, how I wanted to shoot up the whole block? I wrote that. You know, the thing that I said I wanted to do with those 3 girls and make them do to all the guys in the room, guess who wrote that? Your boy. So when you begin to look at that, you know, we can't blame some executive head. We can't blame somebody that we can't see. We've got to put this really squarely in the face of the face of hip hop. And the face of hip hop is still young black men.
Mm.
That's the face of hip hop. There are women there, but it's young black men.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely women, but I mean, I think it's fair to say that the men sort of drive it. The men are sort of in charge and whatnot. And to that point, let's take a quick look at this clip. It is Kodak Black, rapper, talking about his relationship with females who work, I guess, under him, not with him, but they work.
Yeah, but you can't expect them girls to give you some just because you're doing music with them, Kodak.
So why you expecting to do music with me?
Yeah, you gotta be careful.
Look, my female artists is just how it is, right? I got a bus. Like, they ain't gonna be my girlfriend, but it's like I'm gonna bust them.
No, man. No. You gotta keep it that's not good business, Kodak, at all.
Seen as the 2 biggest female stars in the 90s, the trailblazing forces of Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown could have made magic if they were allowed to join forces. Instead, they were pitted against one another at every opportunity. And after years of throwing shade at one another across their discographies, their tension eventually culminated in a shooting between their entourages outside of Hot 97, in which one man was shot in the back.
After 2-3 years of just being verbally attacked, I felt like I owed it to my fans. We just want to stop it. We just want to say, look, let's put an end to it.
Forced into a beef with one another, this situation was mimicked years later by Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, and eventually culminating in a physical altercation that left the world shocked.
So let's start with Mr. Kodak Black. First of all, he just confessed to a crime. On a national syndicated show, because, and he just said it so I mean, he made it plain, like, if you want to work for me, you have to sleep with me,
right?
And the thing is, no one's obviously that's reprehensible. That's a depraved mindset, but it's not like there's a shortage of women who will do it. Like, there's his mindset, which is, if you work for me, you gotta have sex with me. But then there's the women that say, okay, that's a fair deal. I'll do that in order to get into the industry. So there's the 2 sides of it. But I mean, just in terms of him, that's just to me, that's just it's depraved. I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, there is a certain depravity that's there. But you know what? Here's the interesting thing is, you know, it's out there. You know, you didn't get that. You didn't have to go into some special archive to go find that clip. That's out there. Yeah. And so, you know, you got to really think about the sea change that's going on in the minds of people, where that's actually acceptable, where Kodak Black is not being canceled. You know, people who've heard this, you know, you don't hear like, and yes, and they heard the Kodak Black, episode, and there was an exodus from his company. No, not at all. Listen, I mean, a part of this is that this is being roundly applauded in some areas, but condoned in many areas. And I think that even as you heard the background where, you heard, oh no, Kodak, no, that's not good. That's not good business. You really could see that there wasn't really a serious air that dealt with the idea that this was illegal in some areas, immoral at the very least. That this was accepted. And I'll tell you why. I think the reality is that they know exactly what you know. That, you know what, there's going to be plenty of women that will be willing to do this. That he's not just some crazy guy that's just talking. There's a realization here that this is what the industry is. This is what people are willing to do. This is the power now of this shaping of our culture. Hip hop is powerful. And, I think if we have not recognized the power, part of what Kodak Black really said and showed And the fact that he's still standing, he's still here, you know, really lets us know the power of this industry and the power of this music and what it has done in terms of the shaping of the minds of both women and men. This would have been unacceptable. This would have been reprehensible. Now this is just something that a group of DJs and disc jockeys have to say, Kodak, maybe you ought to rethink that. We've come a long way.
Yeah. I mean, they seemed, they were laughing, first of all. So it wasn't like the serious tone. It wasn't as severe. It was sort of like they're still laughing and joking with them. But to them, it's like, bro, you don't want to you don't want to do that on the air because you commit to a crime. It's more of that than this is really bad. It's because it wasn't about the business. Like, it's not bad business. It's like you're mistreating and degrading these women. Like, and one of the hosts was a woman. Like, she should have been screaming like, why would you treat women like that? Like, I wouldn't want to be treated like that. Why would she rubber stamp other women being treated like that? Probably because she knows I can't stop it. No matter what I say here today, there's still gonna be a line outside the studio wanting to work with him, knowing what they know about him and the way he operates. So,
well, let's face it. Also, this is also a part of gangster lifestyle. You know, when you look at gangster rap and when you look at how it become interwoven into the culture, there are certain things that it is done to relax our mind, to relax certain areas that we would have bristled at before. We don't quite bristle at now. So once you hear over and over and over again, the number of women who've done this, and you hear over and over and over again, that they're lined up, to get to me, and it's no longer a problem that I'm all night, whatever that situation is, and here's the drug that I'm taking to make sure I can take care of all of them. Once you get desensitized to that, that's why you have an interview like that. That's why you have a Kodak Black who doesn't hide it, who doesn't try to use fancy words to try to get around it. He lays it out there in the clearest, gutterest of tones, simply because you all know what gangster rap is all about. This is what now has become the soundtrack of our society. This is what it's about. And it's undeniable because, listen, no matter what they say, in the next 10 minutes, if they're DJs, aren't they going to be playing something with Kodak Black on it? Probably. If that's what they're doing, aren't they going to press a button in a little while and play all the same stuff that says, okay, if I don't agree with it on the air, I'll just put it here and I'll let Kodak Black say it in his music. It's the same. We've kind of given in and acquiesced to things now that have really driven our moral compass to near zero.
But why is it in hip hop? Like, why? I mean, hip hop didn't invent gangsters or anything like that. Why? Other organized crime people didn't destroy their own communities. Like, they might destroy yours, but they were careful to take it out of their neighborhoods into yours, their neighborhoods. Why are we the only one that's seen that bomb our own cities, our own neighborhoods? Why? What is the pathology there?
Well, without knowing it, I think that it is self-hatred. It's a self-hatred based genre. Now it didn't start that way, but I think it's evolved into that without knowing it. It's one of the things, again, it's kind of like handling a virus. I think the industry is able to hold on and to handle this virus in the way that it is because it doesn't explode in their face. They recognize that it is like the bomb. It is like, when we take poverty and we take being marginalized and we add all those things together and throw crack into it, like happened in LA with the, you saw, for whatever the CIA did, you saw how it exploded, right? And it destroyed those neighborhoods. Hip hop has evolved into that very same thing, where now the industry has forced, the people have forced now artists to actually live the life that they said. Before, you didn't have to live it. You could say it. Now they're requiring it. And it's become a blood sport. Listen, that's now, the reality is the mafia has its own view of thug life. The Russian mafia has its own view of thug life. The Yakuza, right? In Japan, they have their own view of thug life. This is a unique view of thug life that hates its own. That's what makes it so different. The mafia also, Joe Colombo was the head of the, the anti-Italian league, I believe it was, right? I mean, when you begin to look at the Yakuza, they are really pro-Japanese. rap music is one of the few genres where its gangster is against its own people. That's the genre. It has evolved or devolved into that genre where the person that I'm describing that I'm going to shoot tonight looks like me. The woman that I'm going to literally rape tonight, that I'm going to pass around tonight. Let me describe her for you, because I'm going to tell you what her hair looks like. And let me tell you what her lips look like. And let me tell you what her skin looks like. She looks just like my sister. It's the only group that has missed it. That like, we need to stop this because this is talking about killing ourselves. No, we missed the boat. And now the industry has latched onto it and says, great. And it makes millions of dollars because we love rapping about killing ourselves.
Right.
It's a psychosis that is moved from some of our social issues and that has not moved us forward. But it is like a snake wrapped around some of our worst base of thinking and will not allow us to move forward.
You know, and I wonder if what's sort of happened is you have now, you described it as a virus. If this virus has sort of infected the whole industry, even people who perhaps didn't want to go that way, still either go that way or they associate with people who go the gangster route.
Sure.
And it brings to mind a clip I have of Drake talking about, among other things, his association with Lil Wayne.
Okay.
A lot of hip hop and some lyrics can really be demeaning to women. I mean, sort of as this new generation of artists, do you have any feelings on that, or does it bother you, or do you think it's just part of the culture?
I feel like there's just like a sort of fine line between demeaning and fun and wit. And I feel like a lot of the music like me and Wayne make, for example, it's fun and it's witty. You know, like we have a song like I Just Wanna F Every Girl in the World. You know, that's one of our biggest songs together. And you know, is it to be taken literal? Is it to be, you know, dissected? And are we like, no, it's more just fun, witty moments.
I mean, it's always not fun, but it's always interesting to watch somebody who's obviously intelligent try to make an argument for something that they know is like bogus, and to watch them struggle intellectually with the obvious hypocrisy in what he's saying is like, you don't even believe that. You can't. You can't seriously believe that. Like, when you say I want to blank every girl in the world, so you want people saying that to your mother, to your sister, to your aunts. I mean, it's such like they don't think about the whole impact. Like they have this little world where they pretend like it has no reach outside of their world. And like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like it's just crazy the way he just explained it. But I think that's the mindset of the ones who even themselves might not be gangster or considered gangster. They've sort of gone to this thing where, but it's okay because we don't really mean it. It's all fun and games. It's just jokes. The problem is the people who are listening to it,
right,
are laughing. They're not laughing. They're saying, I want to be like Drake. I want to do what Drake's doing. I want to do what Lil Wayne's doing. So they're acting out these things in their neighborhood, and they're not laughing about it. I mean, they're taking it dead seriously.
Absolutely. You know what? I mean, interestingly enough, when you look at rap music and you begin to look at where the money really, really was, you know, when rappers, you know, when they rapped, when they were lyricists, and they did not mirror any of the stereotypes that white America had about Black people at that time, rap music stayed underground. It was really nothing big. It is when America was able to buy rap music. It was able to buy rap music when the rappers began to embody and mirror the stereotypes. That's when they began to make millions and millions of dollars. And that was the trap. You know, Drake is not aware. And I think as he's trying to, you know, kind of work the line a little bit and people, you know, it's fun and witty. I think, again, that's where the definition is. You know, when you look at what music is, it's communication. So the idea that, like, you know, this idea of demeaning as many women as possible, the strange thing is that somehow that there's a way that we think that can be done with wit. That's the strangeness, that, you know, we've developed a way of being witty with murder. We've developed a way of being witty with rape. And we might need to literally look at this and not celebrate the wit as much and look again at the content, because that wit, along with the content, is driving so many people who don't know the difference into violence with that, and it's beginning to become the soundtrack of so many people's demise.
Yeah, it just really, when I see that clip, it's like he's co-signing that stuff
Absolutely.
He's trying not to, but he's still sort of doing it because he's kind of sort of explaining away, and it's more than unfortunate. It's really has deadly serious consequences, and it's just a shame that this kind of devolved into that.
Right.
But why? Knowing all of this, knowing all the destruction and whatnot, why is hip hop so popular? Knowing all those things, why is it still flying off the shelves and leading, Spotify and listens and all? Why is that when people know what it's doing?
Well, I mean, because it's still, at the end of the day, it's still gangster. And listen, why are we? I mean, with all that's going on with guns in this country, why are gun sales going through the roof? Right. With all that's happened, because we have a love affair with guns. Well, we also have a love affair with gangster. There is, I think it's twofold. There is that one side that rap works, and because you have the one side that is about thug life, right? And we have developed a taste for thugs, for the thug life, right? Again, that's going back to our beginning, to our bootleg days. We've developed that love for that anti-hero. But there's the other part that is the American dream, that is the rags to riches. Part of why rap sells is because we do get to see kids who come from nothing, who had nothing, and now they have a Maybach. These are kids who, and they rap about it. Rap is so interesting because it's one of the few places that you hear somebody rap about food. It started out talking about food, right? And then you hear, I'm eating mussels in Brussels. And you don't have any other genres where people are talking about, I turn these noodles into lobster. There's nobody else. So it starts from poverty, not having anything to such an extent that part of our music is really talking about this big plate of pasta that I'm eating at this well-known restaurant. So there is the rags to riches element that I think that also drives this, that where, man, that can be me.
Right.
I can be that one day. And looking at this, I'm not really good at the round ball. I can't catch any passes, but this is that third way for people who've been marginalized that look at this and say, hey, we do see millionaires. We do have millionaires in our neighborhood. Though, the last video, they had 2 guns in the air, they're still millionaires. So I think that rags to riches element is important. And the discussion is why rap music has just caught on so well, and why it has got its hooks in our society, because there's wealth that's directly connected to this death.
I mean, so now it seems though like you're really putting yourselves in harm's way, because it seems like the government in particular,
absolutely,
local governments are saying enough of this. We're going to treat you, if you want to be gangster, we'll treat you like gangs. We'll treat you like organized criminals. And they have begun to deploy tools that have extremely severe consequences, such as, I think you mentioned earlier,
the RICO,
which allows you to do all sorts of things, including just taking all your possessions, freezing your bank accounts,
right,
when you've been, convicted. It allows you to connect people who may only have a peripheral, relationship, or
right.
I'm going to do something. You give me your car keys. I go. Now both of us are in the RICO charge because you gave me the car keys. So you furthered the conspiracy. So you get caught up in it as well. And so I think now that the tide has turned in terms of law enforcement, I think that some of these guys are going to be in for serious consequences. That's all. And we have a clip. Let's look at it in a few minutes. We saw where in Georgia, I think 30-something people got caught up in a RICO charge, including Young Thug and Gunna, 2 rappers from the Atlanta area. The DA said, I'm not playing. Like, if these guys want to do this, then this is what we're going to do.
Right. Let's take a look at the clip. Let's see what the clip says.
First, let's look at a clip of.
That guy, Young Thug, is one of the biggest names in hip-hop, which many fans say is more than music. Hip-hop is often described as a culture that started about 30 years ago, born of the need for urban young people to share their experiences and how they felt about them. But a lot of people, including yours truly, believe that music, the majority of it, that we consider hip-hop today, has run so far off the rails, to the point where many believe that it is destructive and creating destructive behavior. Well, that's my opinion, Park Branch. Listen, let's get this out the way. We know there are a few of them that produce good rap music.
Yes.
Good lyrics, good values, good virtues. That's not what we're talking about today, because they're in the minority.
Yes.
Talk about this music and the impact that it's having.
It can have a terrible impact if used the wrong way. But if it's used in a positive way, like what we do with our Should Could Dream Tour, you can inspire a whole nation to work hard, never settle, dream big, and to accomplish extraordinary success.
So yeah, so they're talking about the rapper Young Thug and trying to make the case that if used properly, rap music can be good. I don't know how you use I'm a Stoner in a positive way that would bring any sort of positive result, but he was trying to make the case. And I think that overall, when you're talking about something that's poisonous, right? Is there any other thing that we would say, well, this is poisonous, but just take a little bit of it and just monitor it, just make sure you don't get too much of it? Like, there's something crazy about the fact that we're willing to ingest poison. You just gotta be a little careful.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I don't think that the rap genre in and of itself is negative. I mean, remember, you think about Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge. When you really look at what he was talking about, and that powder keg that was in the Bronx and what was going on at that time, it was a condemnation of poverty and and marginalization in society. I don't think the rap genre in and of itself is poison. Now, I do think that there is a strain within the genre that is absolutely poison that is also making the most money. That's the area that I don't think that there's anything that you can actually do to make that good. The beats are so great, and it does something physically, and that's also, DJs have known for a long time, what number of beats per second gets the heartbeat running, right? So the industry is aware that there's certain beats that you can just sit up and talk and you're not even thinking about it. Before you know it, you're shaking your head. So the beats are working, but the lyrics are working against people. So I think that without a doubt, there's a strain within the rap genre that just can't be saved, that is poison, and that is really just the drumbeat of death melodically.
But isn't that bringing down the entire genre? I mean, should you go through and try to pick around the poison to get to the good stuff?
Well, it's kind of like rock, right? I mean, there's there's punk rock. There's lots of different types of rock that some people look and say, okay, that slam rock where just bumping and banging into each other. Okay, we don't like that. And I think the reality is that people have the ability, just like with punk rock, people have the ability to say, Billy Idol. I mean, right? I think his name Billy Idol. Yeah, we like you for a time, but we're done with punk rock. We want to marginalize the punk scene. It's not going to be big. People determine that. The reality here is that people are going to find hip hop if that's where the heart really is. And I think spiritually, that's where the damage is coming, because that's where the heart is. The heart is desiring this gangsterism. The heart is desiring, it is, as the music is mirroring things, it only is showing things that people actually want to be. That's where our damage is going. That we want beefs, that what determines whether we're strong or tough or not are some of the things that are mirrored in the music. And so, yeah, not all the industry I think is poison, but I think there's some that's poison that will never go away simply because it's connected to the dollar.
Yeah, sure.
It's easier just to get squeeze 3 years out of a rapper, and then let him go and do 20, and then we'll just get his younger brother, because every one of these rappers seem like they have a younger brother who also raps. So that's exactly what they're doing. Oh, Tay got shot, well then Lil Tay is going to take his spot, and we've been watching that happen left and right. King Von got killed, and the reality is that the Chicago drill scene didn't drop because of one person. FBG Duck, and whose name as many as you want, but it doesn't stop. They just have another group that are going to come in, and as long as they're willing to shoot, and as long as they're willing to have beefs, they can get it cracking in the industry today. And that's the shame of it.
So to what extent, though, do you think that the level of self-destruction is demonic? I mean, is there demonic forces at play here where people will destroy themselves and take themselves out?
Oh, no doubt. Listen, one of the things about rap music, there's some deception there, right? But you know what? There is a level of honesty there that, we miss. And when these young guys are saying, hey, I'm on demon time, that's really serious. When we miss the idea that words change people's lives. And just because there's, a mute melody behind it, these are words, these are spells. The same things that will get you and lift you can also bring you down. So in the same way that, in ministry works in that very same way. It uses words. People are saved by the word, right? So these same words are casting spells. These same words are placing vain imaginations in the minds of people that will tell you that before I even went to do this, I put this particular CD in. Before I went to do this action, here was my playlist. So is it demonic? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's driven. The behind the scenes, we think what's behind this rapper is this industry. Well, what's behind this industry is the destination of death. It's demonic, without a doubt. And I think spiritually, this self-hatred, this hurting of ourselves is marring. It's designed, again, the very same thing that Satan always does. It's designed to mar the image of God.
Wow.
And when we think that we're made in the image of a pimp or the image of a gangster, that's a lie. We're made in the image of God. And so as long as we think we're just scratching the face of the pimp, that we're just, beating up a hoe, and we don't realize we're hitting the very image of God, Satan is having his way.
So false teaching and false prophets don't just refer to Bible verses. It can be anything that somebody is teaching that's destructive, or that's
absolutely.
Wow.
Listen, one of the things that we thought, we've been bamboozled in our own minds and thinking and looking at the pulpit. The false prophet is going to come in the pulpit. We've been looking for some crazy guy with a sign around his neck saying, the end is near, right? And so we're like, okay, maybe he's one of those, right? And we never thought that the destruction, that one of the things that the false prophet does is leads people astray. Right? One of the things that the false prophet does society. The false prophet is going to deceive the society. So we've been thinking he's only coming after the elect. No, the elect can't be touched anyway. No, the false prophets are coming after society, and there are going to be many before the false prophet gets here. We're seeing false prophets work to bamboozle the minds of young people, to make them think something that after just a few years in prison, they realize, I got bamboozled. This is not who I am. What made me think that? This helped me get there. There are plenty of people that have said, when I heard this music, it made me think this. And now they don't, but it's too late. So when you really look at it, man, the false prophet, that if we spiritually are awakened, we'll recognize that, man, we're hearing false prophets that simply have a tune behind them. And the issue of Satan has always been, if I play the tune, I want you to dance to it. And we are doing just that.
Wow. That is, man, that's really something. That's crazy. So we have a caller and we have a question in the comments. The question is, do you believe that it continues because we also have an appetite for the deplorable violence that they spew? I would say absolutely. I say absolutely. We're a violent society, and I think we feed off, living vicariously to people who do violence, like things that people want to do, and they say, I would love to take somebody out. They step on my shoe, I'd love to shoot them up. If we have a beef, I would love to be able to bust them up or do this or do that. I would love to be able to sleep with any girl that I saw. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of the popularity is sort of people want to be them. People want to be in their position, whether they don't want to be the one getting shot, but they want to be the one dishing out the violence and whatnot.
I think absolutely, and I think it takes advantage again of a marginalized society. Because when specific groups in society have recourse. When you deal with a group in society that believes that there's no recourse, that fantasize only about recourse, then this opens the door to, all right, you may not be able to get the guy who did it, but somebody like him you can get. So and the interesting thing is, you're not going to get the guy who really hurt you, but who knows? The guy next door might have done something too. Go get him. So yeah, we'll keep it going simply because this desire, this need for vengeance, however we get it, is still in our hearts.
Yeah.
And it feeds. It just feeds us.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's sad. Let's go to our caller, Clarice. Let's bring Clarice in. Clarice, how you doing? Welcome to Pass the Noise.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, gentlemen.
How you doing, Clarice?
I'm doing well. This is a really, really good topic. I love hip hop. I listen to hip hop, not today's hip hop, but more like the 80s and 90s hip hop. And I am a Christian, and a lot of people would say, you shouldn't listen to that music because you're Christian. Now I love gospel music too, but I really just love all music, all genres. So, but I typically listen to the gospel and the hip hop and R&B. So, what are your thoughts on that? A Christian listening to this music.
Do you feel like that music has an effect on you that other music doesn't?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But it's if I'm out in public, like if I have it turned up loud and out in public in my car, and I'm a blasted, windows down and everything. But it could be looked upon differently, to an unbeliever if I'm out here talking about God, but then I go into my car and I'm blasting, Public Enemy. That could be controversial, right?
Yes, that could be controversial. But you know what? It can be controversial, but no, it's not controversial. Listen, the Bible says this. If you talk about this from a scriptural basis, all things are lawful. When you look at music, you have to kind of make a determination in terms of whether that music has any detriment to your spirit, right? You're listen to Public Enemy. There's nothing that says it's illegal. There's no sanctioning. Biblically, you're not going to be able to see a place where it says, don't listen to PE, but you must listen to, Kurt Carr. You won't find that scripturally, right? But what you have to recognize is that you also don't want to let your good be evil spoken of, right? As a believer, we also are accountable for those areas that are controversial, just like Paul said, eating meat. So if meat offends your brother, the Bible says don't eat it. Here's what you have to do. You blast it where you are comfortable, where it won't hurt anywhere. There's no damage. There's no controversy. Because the reality is that we don't need controversies to distract from the mission that we have, which is gaining souls for Christ. So then you don't blast it where people are. But the reality is there are people who won't like any music. Other than gospel music, they won't like any. So you're not going to live your life in that way, but you do live your life making sure that you don't do anything that would detract from your ability to win souls for Christ. I think that helps to kind of gain how we operate. There are people who look and say there's certain clothing that that doesn't look like a Christian. Well, again, if that's going to be an offense in some areas, listen, I'm not going to wear it. But in other places, it's fine because it's not offensive to anyone. That's what I would suggest.
But that's kind of hard to determine, because if I'm, in the parking lot, pulling in the parking lot of Walmart, and I see someone that knows that I'm a Christian, I'll say, for example, I at work years ago, I had it wasn't hip hop, but it was some R&B song from the 90s, and it was playing, while I was doing my work, and they said, an unbeliever who knew that I was a believer and loved Christ, they said, Clarice, you're not supposed to be listening to that. And then I thought to myself, like, darn, did I just miss an opportunity because she's been taught or she's heard that Christians are only supposed to listen to, Christian music and not, worldly music, as my mom would call it, that secular thing. So, that's where I would get it, confused, because, I don't want my good being ill, spoken of badly.
Right. But there's no confusion then. I think as you begin to look at it, you recognize your surroundings, right? You know where you are. So whether you may like it or not, or whether it makes you comfortable, if you're in an area where you recognize other people are there and it could be misconstrued, then the key is going to be whether the issue is whether you want to explain to them that, like, biblically, I'm in good stead, or whether you want to make sure that you don't cause any confusion whatsoever. Because here's the truth. Can't you listen to your music how you want to in any other area, in any other place in your life, other than those few areas where it could cause confusion?
Right.
That's the sacrificial life, that we live as believers.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, thanks for calling in.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
We got 4 minutes and change left. Let's look at the clip of the Georgia district attorney who's using rap lyrics as evidence in RICO cases.
Details this morning in a gang indictment naming rappers Young Thug and Gunna. We've just learned Gunna, whose real name is Sergio Kitchens, was booked sometime in the last few hours on a RICO charge. He could have a first appearance before a judge this morning. So this comes less than 24 hours after Young Thug appeared in court on these charges for the first time. More than 25 people are listed on the same indictment as Young Thug, and in it, prosecutors used the rapper's own lyrics as evidence.
That's correct, Aisha. Many of the charges related to the indictment point to Young Thug's rap lyrics as well as social media posts as evidence. Now, Young Thug's songs and music videos were listed in great detail by Fulton County authorities. Lyrics such as, "I never killed anybody, but I got something to do with that body." The indictment also tied the rapper to the murder of Donovan Thomas. That's the leader of a rival gang, pointing to lyrics which state, "I killed his man in front of his mama." One of the people charged with his death was a member of Thug's YSL label.
I believe in the First Amendment. It's one of our most precious rights. However, the First Amendment does not protect people from prosecutors using it as evidence if it is such.
I mean, essentially, he's confessing to a crime, put it on tape, put it on social media, and now these things are going to be used against, I think you said 25 people, or people who may not be directly involved, but people who are either, peripherally involved or sort of, did something in and around, his activities that are causing them to be swept up. That's a lot of people to sweep up in one charge, right? 25 people in one charge.
Absolutely.
Other assets, you can take other assets, you can do all sorts of other things, and RICO carries, serious federal time in terms of if you're convicted. But I think the point in that is, I think that they've just been emboldened to sort of do that, being bold and say, I did something, and I'm gonna rap about it, and we're gonna record it. We're gonna do 5 takes, record it, press it, put it out there, and then I'm gonna go on Twitter and tweet about it. I mean, I think that's. You talked about this earlier. I think that's. I mean, if anything's a strong delusion, that is a strong delusion.
Absolutely. Yeah, listen, I mean, that's demonic. We're here, we live here on Earth. We kind of know how the thing works. If people are trying to do something, you do it and you try to get away with it. There's no way you can't. The demonic, the trap of trapping yourself. The whole game of like doing it and recording it and making sure that it's out there. This is definitely demonic, no doubt about it. And I think in the end of the day, there is a boldness that has come because nothing has happened. There's so much of this criminality have been applauded, and I think it's shocking now that people are. We're kind of shocked that now, man, they're doing something about something that had been put in people's faces all this time. So I think in some ways, you know, a lot of people will get swept up into things that they may or may not have been involved in. But I think it's going to really expose the connection of rap music and the streets, because there is a direct correlation that we see now with rap music and the streets that you didn't see in the same way. There was a direct correlation with rap and the urban community that started with rap. But now this is rap, and not in other rappers, not in other creative genres. This is rap directly connected to street elements. And if that connection isn't there, there's no money being made. People who aren't in the streets aren't making any money.
Right.
Except those guys who made money already,
right?
And who now hypocritically now still talking about being in the street while they're talking about other kids and encouraging other kids to stay in the gang when they're not in the gang at all. When their kids are going to you know, universities that are playing football, but they're still acting like they're crippin'. I have a problem with that. I know we don't have a lot of time. We don't have time to deal with that. But man, the hypocrisy in this thing is crazy.
Yeah, I've heard some, you're right, we're just about out of time, but I've heard some talk about they wouldn't let their kids, or they don't let their kids listen to their music, the music they produce. Like, I'll never listen to that. But it's good enough for your kids and my kids. So, I mean, I think that there's a hypocrisy and just the arrogance there. That's just like, yeah, you're going to still listen and buy it, but I'm not feeding this to my kids. So there's definitely just a level of craziness there that it's just beyond words, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we are out of time. Man, great conversation. Thanks
Absolutely.
Who tuned in and joined in. We certainly appreciate it. We will not be here next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, we're off. We'll pick it back up second week in August. We'll come back with another great topic. And
Absolutely.
we'll hope you join us and make your voice heard, join in, listen in. In the meantime, this is our 5th episode. So you can go on YouTube, you can go on Facebook and watch the past episodes. We ask you to share on YouTube and Facebook and other social media. Share with your friends, share with other people. Get the word out about the podcast. We truly and really appreciate it. And that's it for me.
Yeah, don't forget to like it as well and hit that notification so you'll know, you know, even like us on Facebook so that when we're about to go live, you will be notified as well automatically. So glad that you were a part of this.
Absolutely. Thank you and good night and God bless.
Take care.